20 matches over 3 nights for WrestleMania 42. I'm predicting all 3 cards next. We made it through SummerSlam, but there are still 8 more months to go until WrestleMania 42. But at least I've now got some more info from my first try right after WrestleMania 41. So be sure to go back and check that one out. But let's get right to it and go with all 3 cards, starting with WrestleMania SmackDown. So SmackDown is down to just 2 hours, so that takes out 1 match. We're going to go down from 6 to 5 here. So let's start, as always, with the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. There's simply no reason to change this up, and no reason to think that they'll change it up either. So there still aren't enough women on the roster to have their own version of a Battle Royal. They already got that opportunity at Evolution. So for now, this Andre is what we're going to start with. Match number 2 for SmackDown. Well, SmackDown superstars always draw the short straw, so we need to put some title matches onto this show. And since Jade Cargill lost to Tiffany Stratton at SummerSlam, maybe she'll win that title at some point, but I think I'm going to stick with my original plan here, having her be the Women's United States Champion instead. And obviously the match that I set up between Jade and Tiffy got burnt at SmackDown. So instead, we've seen Nia attack Lash Legend on NXT, so I assume a main roster call-up is coming for Lash at some point. So this seems like a perfect match for these 2 powerhouses, so Jade versus Lash goes here. For match number 3, Rusev has been better of late against Sheamus, but those 2 are obviously going to need to be split up well before then, and so I'm going to assume that he will be going to SmackDown in the draft. And note that this is a much harder exercise with no draft yet in 2025. So regardless, let's get one of our favorites an actual match on this show instead of just dumping them into the Andre. And so we will culminate with R-Truth harassing Rusev for one final time here on SmackDown. Match number 4, I had Fraxium as tag team champions here while they were still in NXT last time, so I see no reason to change that here. And perhaps they'll be the ones to eventually unseat the Wyatt Six, and so I think the Wyatts will go on to recruit another member that we'll talk about here in a little bit, but otherwise we simply have to shuffle around the tag team division between the 2 shows, so we're going to leave DIY here and move over both the New Day and the War Raiders over from Raw. And we simply can't have a ladder match on every single PLE, though after what we've seen between everyone in the SmackDown division, that might not be such a bad idea at all. However, we're still going to give this a nice fatal 4-way tag team match for the WWE tag team titles right here. And match number 5 will be our main event for SmackDown WrestleMania, and it will be a steel cage match between Damian Priest and Solo Sikoa. Both of these men have been in steel cage matches recently, and that still continues to be a good way to pretend that the MFTs can't get involved. Unfortunately, there's no place on the card for either of them into WrestleMania proper, so this will have to be a consolation prize. But with that, let's go to WrestleMania Night 1, and we'll start with match number 1, and just like last year, there will be 7 scheduled matches on each night. So why don't we start with my craziest idea of them all, and I had AJ Styles as the Intercontinental Champion in my first try, and I think if he gets a rematch against Dom and wins, I don't think he's going to keep that title the entire time. So instead, let's do something wild with the El Grande Americano gimmick and let it go all year long. So at some point, all of these various El Grande Americanos are going to win the Intercontinental title by working together, and then eventually they're going to turn on each other, so they will have a match where only the winner gets to remain El Grande Americano, and we'll just say that Kaiser's Americano is going to be the one who holds the title come WrestleMania. But since we won't know who El Grande Americano is, all of the other available luchadors will battle him for the title and also to unmask him. And don't forget Chad Gable, he won't have his mask anymore, but he will still squirm his way into this match. And so I think that will make for one perfect, crazy 6-pack elimination match with El Grande Americano, Chad Gable, Rey Mysterio, Dragon Lee, Penta, and Rey Fenix. In match number 2, in this scenario, I think Randy Orton will have already turned on Cody Rhodes and wrapped up his feud by the time the Royal Rumble is over, pretty much like Kevin Owens last year. So I think Orton is going to need a new opponent for Mania, but the best available babyface on SmackDown will be a man who still can't get a title due to Rhodes continuing to hold it yet again. So of course that is LA Knight, and for both of them, this is still a pretty good consolation prize. For match number 3, I previously had the Usos reuniting and holding the World Tag Team titles come Mania, but in this case we're going to fully stretch out the Bloodline versus The Vision storyline, so we will make the Usos the challengers here against the Braun Squad, who will still be together under this scenario. So the Braun Squad will easily take those tag titles whenever they feel like it, and so the Usos will have to pry it away from them. In match number 4, we're finally going with the everything, everywhere, all at once breakup. So how are we going to get there? I think Finn Balor said on a commercial on Raw this past week that Liv Morgan would be back in 6 to 8 months. So who knows if he's actually telling the truth there, but we're just going to say that perhaps Liv returns at the Royal Rumble, and so Roxanne can just toss her out, and that will kick things off into high gear. So here's what we're going to do. In match number 4, it will be Liv versus Roxanne one-on-one. Then in match number 5, which will be our second Judgment Day match, it will be Dirty Dominic Mysterio against Finn Balor going one-on-one. And let's just say here that Roxanne wins the first match and Dom wins the second match, so that will give us a 1-1 tie between all of the Judgment Day factions here. So to top it off, we're going to have a mixed tag team match immediately after these two matches to break the tie, so the winner will take it all, including the right to use the Judgment Day name. So in our semi-main event, I originally had Becky Lynch as the Women's World Champion, but I'm going to switch that up here and give it to Bianca Belair, moving her over from SmackDown to Raw in the draft, and she will finally get her hands on Naomi to win that title. And so I'm also switching up my Elimination Chamber winner to Charlotte Flair, and she will keep momentum as a babyface after Alexa turns on her as she turns to the Wyatt Six once and for all. But Becky will still get into this match somehow, weaseling her way in to set up yet another epic women's triple threat match. And then in our main event, we are simply not ready to change my original plan here for Night 1's main event, and Punk will not be allowed to face Rollins after their incredible feud throughout all of 2025, so when Punk goes on to win the Royal Rumble, he will finally have to pick Cody Rhodes and cross paths with him for the WWE Championship. So let's go to Night 2 of WrestleMania, and I'm sure a lot of you have Sami Zayn winning the Royal Rumble instead of CM Punk, and yes, he is a very strong pick for that distinction as of right now. And especially with it in Saudi Arabia, you would think Zayn just might be the strong favorite. But no Sami Zayn journey is complete without maximum suffering first. So he's gonna somehow lose the Rumble, and so he'll have to go into the Elimination Chamber instead, and somehow he will improbably get the win against 5 other men. So let's have his story go full circle, and after Rollins dispatched him right after WrestleMania, he then rejoins the OG Bloodline to fight The Vision at War Games, and then he sticks around them long enough so that he's appropriately getting this title match here in the storyline. But yeah, we had Rollins before the first time around, so of course we're sticking with him with the title at Mania, but I guess I'm gonna hold off on that Braun Breaker turn from Rollins, for now at least. In match number 2, I'm not sure how long the Allies of Convenience will stick together, but eventually the Wyatt Six will reconnect with Alexa, and she will turn on Charlotte mid-match, and lose the titles to the Kabuki Warriors. But that's just a bump in the road for Alexa, because after dispatching Charlotte, she sets her sights back on the tag titles with Nikki Cross, and they quickly win them. But we simply need more women on the card, so in addition to the Kabuki Warriors, we're adding Julia and Kiana James, and we're also finally, still, from my last prediction, getting the Bella Twins back together for one more crack at the titles in this incredible Fatal 4-Way. For match number 3, this seems like the last WrestleMania for AJ Styles, so I simply have to give him the best possible opponent that he has not yet faced at WrestleMania. And so enter Drew McIntyre. So I simply think this will be an awfully good match, even though it's not going to be for a title. In match number 4, I had Nia Jax as the Women's IC Champion the last time around, but I've just got to take her off the card completely for now. Instead, we're going in a completely different direction with a new crop of athletes for another Fatal 4-Way, so we will make Io Sky the champion here, and that is because she is the best in-ring wrestler, and the IC title is supposed to be the Work Women's title, right? So, unlike her recent world title reign, for the IC title, we actually have to have her wrestle a whole bunch of awesome matches defending the title week in and week out. And I'd love better ideas than to put Lyra and Bayley right back in an IC title feud, but they're gonna go their separate ways for at least a little bit, right? So I can easily see them getting jammed right back together for WrestleMania. And of course, Lyra will be allowed to compete for the title again with Becky out of the way. And unfortunately, I am going to drop Tiffany Stratton down here with a brand switch after losing the WWE Women's Championship, and she's also going to have an attitude adjustment to round out this match. In match number 5, now that Gunther's second title reign has ended, it is simply time for him to do something new, so he has to move over to SmackDown in the draft. But no, he is not going to beat Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship, so let's get him a title like he always has in the form of the US title. So we're going to make this one another Fatal 4-Way, so the ring general has to deal with some high flyers in Logan Paul, who he's already interacted with a little bit on Raw, as well as 2 holdovers from SmackDown. First, Jacob Fatu, so maybe he can finally regain that US title, and the now on his own as a solo act, Montez Ford, which I think may have just been teased after they lost that TLC match at SummerSlam. In our semi-main event, I previously had Bianca Belair as the WWE Women's Champion, but I'm essentially switching her and Rhea Ripley in the draft. So while I admit that may not happen because spouses are pretty much kept on the same brand and I still have Ford on SmackDown, I simply have a feeling that Rhea needs to be a champion by the end of Crown Jewel because it's in Australia in October. And I think maybe that happens due to a brand switch. So let's say she actually keeps the title this year going into Mania, and she will face the winner of the Royal Rumble in Stephanie Vaquer. And those two teased the match a couple of times on Raw in some quick backstage moments, and they also had that 8-woman tag match together, so it feels like this is the women's match that we simply have to see this year, and I agree. And in our main event of Night 2 of WrestleMania, I am not yet ready to give up on the dream that I've been spelling out since the very start of this show, saying that WrestleMania 42 would always be The Rock taking on Roman Reigns, and that it would be The Rock's final match in WWE. So perhaps here we can say The Rock interferes in Roman Reigns' long-awaited title match against Seth Rollins at the Royal Rumble, or maybe even at the Elimination Chamber if The Rock is simply not going to go to Saudi Arabia. Now, The Rock may be a little bit on the outs right now with the WWE, and his schedule for movies is awfully packed as it stands right now. So he could be filming that Scorsese film somewhere around that time, but I just can't give it up right now. I just can't do it. So this also happens to be the only way that I can justify having Sami Zayn's story pay off at the end by this WrestleMania, and also not just handing Roman Reigns a title win if he's planning to go MIA yet again after WrestleMania. So, because of all that, we're gonna have tribal combat, not for the Ulafala, and not to be tribal chief, because that is simply not enough between these two. We will call this the match for High Chief instead. So that is my second crack at 20 matches over all 3 nights of WrestleMania weekend, and we'll do it again after Survivor Series. So maybe we can see just how unreal these options will be. But if you missed my 2 videos for Stop the 10 Count for both nights of SummerSlam, be sure to go right on over here and check those out. So until next time, I am the SportsZu, and this has been a podcast that still needs a new name.